the dark horse of the CSL, will face off a hot UC Berkeley squad, both seemingly getting further than predictions would have guessed. We'll have to see if either of these teams can dance into a chance at qualifying for our finals at DreamHack Austin. Of course, I am Nomo Dogan, joined by Chandyland to cast these games tonight. Should be an awesome evening filled with lots of exciting games. How are you doing tonight, Chandy?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to see these games.
Yep, same here. Um, yeah, as usual, it's going to be the best of five format. Once a class has been played, it can no longer be played for the rest of the match by its respective school. And we will be jumping into our first games here shortly.
Right.
Uh, yeah, there's a lot on the line. Like I said, it's the last of the round of eight. So the next time we're going to be broadcasting is going to be on Friday for the semifinals, and then after that will be the finals at DreamHack Austin. So it's building up here. It's all culminating towards the exciting ending that we're going to see at the
Right.
finals.
And we're getting so close to the end of the season now. Yeah. And we'll be determining our finalists on Friday for who we're gonna be sending to DreamHack. And so like all the teams we have left right now, they're all like really, really strong teams. So excited to see some good games tonight.
Oh yeah, to make it this far out of all the competitors we've had, all the schools that played this season, it definitely takes a lot, and mental fortitude as well. Playing all these matches, getting here, and trying to like cut out some of the nerves, I think could definitely be an issue for some of the players that maybe aren't used to having their matches broadcasted and stuff like that. Maybe it's a little bit more pressure than what they felt before, but I think a lot of these schools have been on our stream before, so maybe a little bit more used to it. But since we're getting into playoffs, I mean, since we're in the round of eight, it's a little bit more than usual when it comes
Right.
to pressure.
These teams are just like so close to the prize right now. It's like two more wins and you're there. You're in Texas, so it's got to
Yeah.
be really high pressure for them.
And we will be starting off the first match, I believe, with two ringers. I mean, their names should sound somewhat familiar to people who have kept up with the Hearthstone scene. It's going to be It's Bolt versus Phone Tap. Two players that have definitely competed in Hearthstone tournaments over time, maybe shifted in and out of the scene a little bit, but they're definitely out there. I mean, like I said, people who have been fans of Hearthstone for a long time should probably know these names, and it's going to be a great game to start us off, I think.
Right. And with that, let's hop into our first match. Again, we're going to be having It's Bolt from UBC versus Phone Tap of St. John's.
Yep. It looks like I'm still waiting for them to get into game, or have they gotten into game?
Looks like they're in the challenge screen. Looks like they're choosing their decks right now.
Okay, cool. Wasn't sure if it was gonna be one of those interesting bugs or something that happens every so often. But um, yeah, I mean, trying to consider what these two players might play here in game one. Usually the good blind pick decks are something like Druid or an aggressive deck like Paladin or Burn Shaman. I think we rarely see the decks that have really weak matchups off the bat, like some decks that have counter matchups. Usually, you just want to play decks that don't really have a good counter, or if
Right,
they do have a counter, it's not like an instant loss kind of deal.
right. I actually have a little bit of insight to what It's Bolt's playing today. Talked to him
Oh,
before
really?
the match, yeah, and he's actually going to be playing Rogue.
Oh, yeah, that sounds great. I mean, like we've talked about before, or at least like I've said before, I think Rogue can definitely do well as long as the person playing it has a mastery of Rogue. Like they've played the deck for a long time, even back to the days of like Gadgetson, or if they haven't played it in that time, they just played it a lot during these times of Tinker's Sharp Sword Oil and the other Rogue decks that have popped up like Malagos, things like that. But I think Rogue is definitely like an acquired taste in a way when it comes to playing it because there's just so many different things, and it's definitely not a standard deck like a lot of other decks. Like mid-range decks, you play big minions, then you kill your opponent with those minions. Aggro decks, you play some minions, you kill your opponent. Rogue, it's like a little more to it than that. It's definitely not like a two-dimensional deck like some other things that we see. But it does look like the players have started their game. Let's see what decks they brought.
All right, so indeed, Phone Tap's its Bolt's going to be opening up with Rogue, and Phone Tap is going to be opening up with Druid, and that is already looking like a scary hand from Phone Tap's side. Its Bolt draws not so great for his opening hand. Let's see what he chooses to mulligan.
Right. Yeah, the Innervate, Wild Growth, Shade of Naxxramas, and Keeper of the Grove. Definitely a solid starting hand. Would maybe prefer something a little bigger than Keeper against Rogue if you're going to ramp it out, because usually it doesn't have anything it'll hit early on.
Right.
Um,
Its Bolt decides to throw everything back except the Shredder. And I'm guessing we're going to be seeing a coin Wild Growth play from Phone Tap's side.
yep, he's probably just considering that or the Shade.
Yeah, I think he's thinking about innovating out the Shade. So it's also a really strong play against Rogue because against Rogue, a lot of times you're afraid that your Shade's just going to get picked off by either like Spell Power Fan as the Nightmare or just a Flurry.
Right. He ends up just deciding to pass the turn, which is interesting. I mean, I can understand this because I think he's going to Wild Growth, then play Shade, then well, actually
Right.
he could
I
just
think he's
innovate
actually
coin Ancient of Lore.
right. I think he might be thinking like, oh, okay, I'm gonna be coining out the Innervate lore on 4.
Well,
And
this
now with
looks
the Doctor
better.
Boom pickup, that's even better.
Yeah, that looks a lot better. Rogue, I mean, they have decent ways to deal with big minions, but right now we don't see a sap in its bolt's hand, um, which would be one of the better ways of dealing with it. Even though it's a Doctor Boom, it'll make more boom bots. It's still just you want to get the 7/7 off the board somehow. And since Phone Tap would use an Innervate to play it, it's still at the end of the day, it's still kind of like a one-for-one trade.
Right.
And it's a good trade mana-wise, but it's
Right.
both not really getting anything on the board. I think, especially in this matchup, you would want to get a 3-drop out here on turn 3, like even if
Right.
it was just an SI agent that doesn't do any damage, but he doesn't have one of those yet, so a little bit awkward. Plays
Right.
the Deadly Poison.
Yeah, it looks like he's gonna set up that deadly poison though, maybe in anticipation of a shredder on turn 4. But not gonna be happy to see what's actually coming out on turn 4. We've got the Doctor Boom, turn 4 Doctor Boom from Phone Tap side. It's Bolt's looking at this like I don't really have a good way to deal with this unless we're gonna swing face.
Right, and I guess it's technically turn 3 Dr. Boom because there was a wild growth, so
Right.
even better.
So he is going
Uh,
to be using the Abyss on this, just going to face tank the 7 damage and just take care of that Doctor Boom. He does have that teacher prep dream though, so he's got a decent board going for himself.
Right. Besides sap, this is one of the better ways you could deal with the Doctor Boom. Even though he ends up taking the damage, you still just have to fight for the board against Druid. Like you can't just sit back and deal with the Doctor Boom and then just let them have their way again the next turn.
Right,
Um, so preparing a board is good. The boom bots may be able to deal with some of this, depending on how things go. But Phone Tap, a lot of options here on how he wants to trade. Starts off by trading into a 1/1, and it kills off the other 1/1. So looks like he might just trade into the Violet Teacher now. See what happens. Boombot goes face for 1. He can still Keeper and Living Roots for 2 damage to kill off the Violet Teacher, which looks like a good line of play here. He's got the Emperor Theresen to follow up for the next turn into an Ancient of Lore on the following one. So things are looking okay as long as its bolt doesn't fill up the board again with that second Violet Teacher, which he's got a Piloted Shredder, which is good, but not
right.
amazing.
And that Emperor is surely coming down this turn. And again, it's Bolt's left at kind of an awkward hand. Like we don't really have a good way to deal with this. We don't really want to sap it because he's just gonna play it again. We could trade both the weapon and the minion, but it does feel kind of bad.
Yeah, feels bad, man.
Right.
But
So what is Itzbal gonna do here? He's got a couple lines. He could potentially teacher sap, teacher trade. Looks like he's just gonna go with the teacher sap.
yeah, Teacher Sap does give him the most immediate board presence.
Right.
Um, Sap doesn't really deal with the Theresen. I mean, it's a good trade mana wise. He does have the sprint to gain some card advantage later on, but that will sacrifice some tempo whenever he does play it.
Right. So is the side gonna is just gonna decide to trade into the keeper here? Unfortunately, the board's a little bit weak to swipe right now, but fortunately for its bold, there's no swipe to be found in the druid's hand yet. And I guess actually for druid, if he's gonna be playing the Thorson twice, I think it's at least fortunate that he doesn't have spells in hand because the reduced minions I would say hurt less than the reduced spell cost, especially if you have combo in hand.
Yeah, yeah, I can agree with that. Now looking over phone tap's options, I would like to play two things in one turn as the druid in this situation. He's got the two 6 drops, which he could be looking at playing, but to me, I think you want to put two things into play. Looks like he's gonna hero power to start things off. Maybe a Doomsayer that could be good.
Right.
Nah, it's just gonna be a wild pyromancer, which
Not
is
something, not something. Its Paul wants to see in conjunction with his Violet teacher. A little bit counterproductive.
yep. Fortunately, he will be able to just trade it into the Druid of the Claw.
Right.
He's got to be aware of his life total now, as he's starting to get into combo range, and a Theracin was played, so that's got to be floating around in his mind, as like an option that'll be available for phone tap. But as we know, phone tap doesn't have either piece of the combo, so it's Bolt looking pretty safe for the moment. He will trade in the Pyromancer and follow it up with Sprint before he does anything else.
Right.
Definitely good to draw first if you plan to draw.
Right. And being able to sprint and facing down an empty board must feel really good for its bold right now. He's really ahead on cards, has a chance to swing this back before the Druid's board gets too out of control, and he's still safely out of combo range even if he face tanks his 4-3 here, so he's got to be feeling alright about this.
Yep. But I definitely understand him deliberating on that decision a little bit because he's like, okay, yeah, I do have good card advantage. I do have good board presence. Like the only thing I'm scared of is the burst damage. So it's got to be a little bit scary to take that damage there. But like you said, he's not
Right.
in normal combo range. Maybe something like an innervate or a little bit of chip damage into combo could
Right.
do him in. But he does have the Loatheb to sure things up a little bit more now.
Right. So I'm eyeing the Thanos fan here because it seems really juicy for the shade, but it's also got to be thinking about okay, maybe I can set up lethal in 2 turns if we go for some kind of Lothab play.
Yeah, I mean, Thanos Van Cleef also
Right,
looks really
that
good. Van
seems
Cleef will
really
be
good.
exactly a 6/6, so out of BGH range. We've already seen a Keeper of the Grove, so at least one of those is out of the equation. And even if he does play the other one, Keeper of the Grove isn't exactly what you're afraid of right now, unless it's for like 2 damage on your face. I think that would be scarier to see than a Silence Keeper of the Grove. But I mean, even if that did happen, he does have the Loatheb. Um, he's gonna end up clearing the board with a Blade Flurry, and it also does the most damage. So yeah, I like this line of play. It
Right,
potentially sets up lethal for next turn if he just draws a little bit more damage, depending on
right,
what happens to his board.
right. And there's no swipe in sight for phone tap here.
Yep, Azure Drake Swipe would probably be the dream for phone tap, but
Right. So what does phone tap do in this position?
um,
He's got to be saying, all right, I might be staring down lethal here. Its bolt's got 7 on board, only needs 4 damage, so a top tick of Vis would do it.
in this position as phone tap, I think I would go for the Azure Drake and hope to draw a swipe. I think
Right,
it's like your best chance of winning, even though it's
right,
a shot in the dark. But sometimes you just got to play to your outs with the other lines of play not really going to be winning plays. Yeah, he doesn't get it, um, which is to be not like it's expected in a way. It is the higher probability that he won't draw a swipe, but it's
right.
just the way Hearthstone pans out. He's still gonna play it out here, kill off the Violet teacher, and see what its bolt has.
So it's both got two draws for lethal here. Belcher is not it, but he can still fan into an answer.
Yep. He could also uh he would also still have lethal with okay, never mind. I was
So I
just
think
thinking
it's
about
either Oil or Abyss here, right, for lethal outs.
hmm
Otherwise, we got to be thinking about combo because the druid is well. We already saw the druid was going into nine, still no combo yet. But we do have this Lothab, we got this Belcher, we have ways to stall.
yeah, if he does go all in on drawing the lethal, he could still play the Lotheb afterwards. So I think it looked okay there, but I guess this way he's thinking there's no possible way the Druid can kill me with Lotheb on the board. So,
Right,
this makes sense too.
right,
There's no reason to put yourself at risk of like not drawing lethal and then somehow phone tap getting back into the game when you can just make a play like this where it's like phone tap can't kill me here no matter what. Maybe he can kill some of my guys, put up a big taunt or something, but I should still be able to win the next turn regardless.
right. And I do like developing both the Lothab and the Shade here because in the case that phone tap happened to top deck the swipe this turn, he could clear Isbolt's whole board, and then Isbolt would be in a losing position, right? So I do like this play a lot.
Yep, just a spell power swipe, even though it would cost 9 mana, would clear the board if the
Right,
Shredder wasn't played. And phone tap, just gonna make sure this isn't a Doomsayer, just in case it might get him back into the game. Which, is something you gotta consider when there's a Shredder on the board. You still might have an out if your opponent gets a Doomsayer, but that's gonna be
right,
Its Bolt taking the first win over phone tap
right.
to start the series off.
All right, and that is a 1-0 lead for UBC.
I'd say that was a really interesting game to start us off too. It
Yeah,
wasn't just two aggro decks, like we see a lot of the time.
right. And Phone Tab's hand was looking really scary there at the beginning, but the turn three Doctor Boom, the if that Doctor Boom didn't have an answer, I think things could have gone pretty differently. But it's Bolt tanking the 7 damage early on, making a good play there.
Right. And I mean, now Rogue is going to be out of the equation for University of British Columbia, which isn't really too big of a deal. Like Rogue, like I was saying, if you're really experienced with the deck, you can beat like anything with it.
Right. I,
Um,
I hear players kind of like throw that back and forth for which matchup they think is favored. I feel like for Rogue players, they always think Rogue is favored in that matchup, but I've heard both ways.
yeah, when it really comes down to it, I think there's just like a few important key factors. Like that game, Phone Tap did not have the combo at any point. And
Right.
so he couldn't really play to that win condition. Whereas in another game, sometimes you have the combo in your hand, so you play more aggressively in general because you know you'll just be able to finish him off with that. Lotheb is also an important card on both sides because as the rogue, you disable the combo for a turn from the druid, and as the druid, you can a lot of the time stop the lethal for at least one turn from the rogue. And Lotheb can sometimes just give you the bridge to victory to fill that turn gap that you need to either put some more minions into play, put a little bit more damage on your opponent, or what have you.
Right. And I think the fact that Itzbold had that like teacher prep and vis to deal with that boom turn, not and having like a really really efficient turn and having that teacher stick throughout the whole game was really really good for him.
Yeah, Violet Teacher also, just a very strong card in general. People think the 1/1s aren't that big of a deal, but they really do add up over time, even against something like Druid, where sometimes they just have to swipe to clear the board, and it's like, wow, that's not very impressive. But sometimes they don't have swipe, and even when they do have it, you still just force them to use it, which isn't really what Druid wants to be doing. Like an optimal game for Druid, a lot of the time they're just like, okay, play this big minion, combo you, you're dead. Um, they don't really want to have to waste their time removing your stuff or dealing with your game plan. Because like in that sense, I think Druid is a somewhat non-interactive deck,
Right.
but a lot of the time it does have to interact because it doesn't always get that combo. Although I will say, with the upcoming nerfs that Blizzard has said they will be doing, I hope that something in the Force combo is going to be changed because I'm not really ready for another year of this existing. So, yep. I mean, it's already been around for so long. I just wish,
Right.
I just hope that something in it gets changed.
Yeah, I think Druid is one of those like timeless decks I would say that is so strong that it has remained very largely unchanged throughout the years of Hearthstone.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, one of the cards was changed a long time ago, I think, before the combo was viable. I think Savage Roar used to do something different. I can't remember exactly. That was a while ago. Jeez. But but yeah, it's like the evil of Hearthstone. Besides Secret Paladin at the moment. I mean, this has existed way longer than Secret Paladin, so and we already know Secret Paladin is getting um somewhat gutted. I mean, it's losing its avenge. Um, and Eater of Secrets is coming out, so that'll be good. Also, a little off topic, just waiting for this next game. I hope they change BGH a little bit as well because it would be nice to see some more variety in what big monsters we see people play. But
I agree. I personally think BGH is like a necessary evil, but I do think the card itself is too strong. I think it should be higher costing than it is.
yeah, I think if it was just 4 mana, I think it would be much better for the game, much
Right.
healthier.
I think four or even I would say five is acceptable. It's
Yeah,
definitely not as like oh it wouldn't be as crazy of a swing as it is now, where you can like play that and just have a full development turn too. Say like BGH into Doctor Boom. I think that's just like a nut swing turn, right?
yeah. You can make it like a 5 mana 3/3 or something. Like I think
Right.
that would be good. As we do see one here for a Sumerian
Right.
up against Real Terror in this Warlock versus Warlock matchup.
Right. And it appears we do have a Warlock mirror. It appears that Real Terror from UBC is going to be playing a Reno Lock, whereas a Sumerian is going to be playing a more heavy variation of Zoo with the Doctor Boom and the Sea Giant.
Yep, Big Game Hunter also in there. He's probably got a couple of abusive sergeants, maybe a Brand Bronzebeard.
Right. I
So
would
Big Game Hunter
expect
could
that
fit.
a Sumerian is playing the Chinese Zoo list if he's playing both Sea Giant and BGH,
Hmm.
which is typically the Leroy list with no Doom cards.
Yep, I think that's been popping up more and more, just
Right.
as people have realized how strong it is, and the Doom Guards not being in your deck to like discard your hand later on makes it a lot easier for you to play cards like Sea Giant or Doctor Boom, the more expensive things.
Right. And I'm wondering, I haven't seen any cards to indicate what version of Reno that Real Terror is playing yet. Not sure if he's playing the combo version or maybe just the heavy minion version. We do see the Molten Giant though, which is I would say less common in the combo version.
Yeah, as well as a Twisting Nether.
Ooh, and that implosion for two hurts.
Yeah, that really does. That man, that does really.
Right, implosion is one of those cards that's so swingy because it's like you either get the nuts or you're really sad. So like, a lot of people are have been like vying for the card to be changed so it's like inversed or at least like a random roll on both so you just don't get like doubly screwed over in either direction.
Yeah, it is one of the more played, very, very high like RNG reliant cards. I mean,
Right.
I was thinking if they made it just 4 mana, deal 3 damage, summon 3 imps, it would probably be like better than it is now. Because I don't
Right.
know, there's like a lot of twos that come up, and just being able to rely on that three. Sure, you never have the chance to get four, but never having the chance to get two is also a big deal. I mean,
Right. I
those are
think
two ways you
if it
can.
was like always 3 and 3, that would just be perfect.
Hmm. But I also like the discussion where people say if it summoned 2 imps and dealt 4 damage, it would be good, or if it summoned 4 imps and dealt 2 damage, it would be good.
Right. So it looks like we are going to be seeing the Sea Giant into the Power Overwhelming here. So you don't really want to throw out this power overwhelming to kill a 3-1, but at the same time, we want to activate this egg as soon as we can, get that 4-4 out on board, and also take away that 3 damage from the other side. So we've got a couple options from Real Terror side here. He can BGH this 8-8. Doesn't know that the Dr. Boom is going to be coming up next, but I think his board is strong enough that he can afford to do so.
Yep. Picks up the Faceless Manipulator. Would you say that that is a
So I'm gonna say most likely it's gonna be the combo deck with Leroy. Some people like Arcane Golem instead of Leroy.
yeah? I mean, I was thinking that yeah, Faceless Manipulator has been really common for a long time in Warlock decks that finish you off with Burst, just because
Right.
the synergy with a charge minion plus power overwhelming and then copy it is a lot of damage in one turn. We're gonna see the Discover sees an Angry Chicken, a Shield Bear, and a Void Walker. Goes with the Void Walker. I was also thinking, would Realtor Faceless Manipulator the Sea Giant and then like trade into it? That could have been disastrous as a Sumerian has his own big game hunter in his hand.
Right.
Just going to be able to kill off his opponents. And yeah, I mean, like we were saying, like big game hunter is here. It's in this zoo deck, which it's like, how is this possible? This card that's so good, and you can just play it as a 3 mana 4/2, and it's okay. When it has such a big upside when it does kill something. Like,
Right.
man, it's just so strong.
Right. It's like when like not even non-control decks run like such a tech card like that, it's like really strong. Like when basically I think it's like you can find a place for it in almost every deck, except maybe a super aggro deck. Mid-range
Yeah.
decks like it, control decks like it, just like an all-around really solid card. So looks like Real Terror is going to be looking to play out his Emperor this turn, probably just trade off his board. He's going to be left with just looks like either a 2/3 or 2 imps. So it looks like he's I would say he probably want to trade the 2/3 in. Yeah, I kind of agree with this. I feel like it's difficult for Zoo to deal with a lot of bodies. And so I feel like with the imps and like the 2 imps probably has more value than the 2/3 over time. We're not really concerned with the extra 2 health.
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna see the Dr. Boom come down from a Sumerian side. Sumerian deciding to trade into the imp here. Oh, with the the siphon soul off the top is a really clean answer to this Dr. Boom.
Yeah, I was just thinking, man, he already used his BGH. What's he gonna do about this? But
Right,
Siphon Soul could be the right answer here.
right,
Just mulling things over a little bit before he makes his final decision, I think. Therson will survive another turn, give him another set of discounts, which is great. As his hand was already looking really clunky, which it usually does with a Reno deck, but this is going to make things a little bit easier to play.
right,
And he is going to opt for the face damage, I think. He's got so much healing.
right,
He doesn't really care about taking more damage. He wants
right.
his Therson to be healthy, and he could put his opponent to 13, which is pretty low, at least for a deck like this.
Right, and it just looks like the Reno look is so far ahead on this board here. He's got the bigger minion, he's not in danger of dying at all, and he hasn't even used any of his healing yet. It's starting to look really bad for a Sumerian.
Yep, he's just looking at Knife Juggler, Lotheb, and a Void Walker for this turn. He's gonna trade in a Boombot, and it hits a 4. Boombot solo kills the Emperor Theresen. What a hero to try to turn this game around.
Right,
Because that Theresen, like, if it survived another turn, that probably would have just been game. Uh,
right.
Ace Marion was definitely looking to kill it off there, but Boombot shows up and he's like, I'll make up for that bad implosion earlier in the game. RNG does even itself out over time. Usually not in the same game, but I like to think it does even out over time. But
Oh, so this is interesting here. So Real Terror is going super safe here. It looks like he's even debating whether he wants to tap or not, but he does play down both the Loatheb and the Healbot, which should lock a Sumerian out of any way to kill him.
yeah, yeah, I mean, even with the biggest burst combo he could come up with, Ace Marion would most definitely not be able to kill off real terror at this
Right.
point.
So the kind of zoo that a Sumerian is playing does tend to have a ton of burst. It's able to do easily 14, 16 from hand with two powerful whelmings. Um, but with the Loatheb in hand, I think that Real Terror should be safe from this position. He's also still got his Reno in hand and two AoEs to deal with this board.
Yep, plenty of options, depending on whatever he wants to do. He should have what he needs to do it. A Sumerian just looking at a bunch of things that do pretty much the same thing. I mean, they're all minions. They're like Imp Gang Boss is at somewhat resilient. He's got a knife juggler on board, but how much do you want to add to the board at this point when you know your opponent is probably going to clear it? You want to find that spot where it's like they don't really want to clear it yet, or I guess you could go with the line of play like this, where it's like, okay, hopefully he doesn't have an AoE, which I think that's definitely what Ace Sumerian is hoping as he's playing
Right,
these minions. He knows he's overextending, but sometimes you just have to take the chance in order to possibly win.
right. I think with the Loatheb turn, he was looking to really like, okay, just hope that he doesn't have a heal, right? Doesn't have heal, doesn't have a way to block out my turn right now. Unfortunately, though, Real Terror's kind of got all the answers here. He can do both the Hellfire to clear off the board, as well as the Reno in the same turn.
Yep. I was also considering
Shadow Flame?
possibly playing double Molten Giant this turn with
Okay,
the Faceless Manipulator.
I do like the double Molten Giant too. Even we can do all of that and even take care of this board, with the exception of one imp. Whoa. Okay.
Power overwhelming on the Molten Giant. Is this lethal damage? Okay. He
All right.
spots the lethal here.
So yeah, power overwhelming with the Hellfire is going to finish up the game, and UBC is going to take a 2-0 lead over St. John's.
Yeah, for a second there, I was trying to think like, okay, he's got a lot of damage, and I mean, I guess I kind of ruled it out for a second because of the taunt on Asumerian's side, but yeah,
Right,
Hellfire does a great job of getting through those small taunts and adding up to lethal damage,
right,
or I guess just Shadow Flame as well. Both of them were there. Yeah, and that's going to be the 2-0 lead now. Real Terror following up its bolt on they're very solid games so far. I'd say both of those games were played like impeccably well from those two players. On the other side, I mean, Red Storm is doing what they can. Phone Tap and Ace Marion. It's not like they made any huge misplays, but um, it's just like I think British Columbia just had some really good deck choices in those first games, and it just added up pretty well for them there. But we are going to
right,
see Force Dog versus Dino Sam coming up next. Force Dog could possibly close out this series, put his team through into the top four to play on Friday and have a chance at going to DreamHack Austin. Or maybe Dino Sam can start the comeback for his team, depending on what happens in this next game. So both Warlocks are out of the way now. We saw its Bolt play as Rogue in the first game and Phone Tap play as Druid. So Paladin still up for both teams. Shaman, Mage, lots of good choices left to choose from.
right. Definitely be surprised if we didn't see Paladin. We've been seeing Paladin almost, I would say in everyone's lineup, almost every week. Been seeing both Murloc Paladin as well as the more popular Secret Paladin.
Right.
Mage is also a really popular pick, and of course UBC still has Druid left.
Yep. Yep. Lots of interesting choices. Druid might be good to close this out unless they think they have like an ace in the hole in a way of like just closing out the series for sure, depending on what decks they have left. Maybe they have a deck that only gets countered by Druid and Warlock, and now Druid and Warlock are gone, so they can play it. I mean, I don't know what deck that might be, but maybe there's something. Maybe some form of warrior. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely think we could be seeing some kind of warrior come out here, especially since we've already seen that the druid is down. But yeah, St. John's has got to be thinking hard here. Like, all right, how are we gonna bring this back? Because UBC is already on match point, and so they're gonna be like, okay, UBC is already down their warlock and their druid. What else do they have left? Oh, they're down their warlock and their rogue, but they still got a lot of viable deck options left. And I feel like it's still hard to predict here, especially when the one team opens up with the less popular class. I would say.
Yep. Yep. And man, it's gotta be feeling good right now for British Columbia. Like being up 2-0 always feels good, but we did see a reverse sweep. I think it was last week or the week before, with a heartbreaking loss for one of the teams. So they definitely don't want to let their guard down just because they're up 2 games. Like it's okay to like celebrate each game win, but don't celebrate the match win until you've won the match. Like just keep doing your thing here, keep playing well.
Right.
I don't really
Reverse
think they
sweeps
made
are
any
definitely still
misplays.
popular. I mean, are still possible, right? So we can't rule anyone out yet.
Yep. And it looks like the players are getting into game. Let's see if British Columbia is going to jump into the semifinals or if St. John's can stall it out here and possibly start a comeback.
All right. So we are going to be seeing what looks to be the control warrior from Force Dog of UBC and Altier from St. John's is going to be playing Paladin. Not sure what kind of Paladin yet.
Yeah, it could be mid-range. Haven't seen any indicators of secrets. It could just be a straight
Right.
mid-range paladin, yeah.
Right. Haven't seen any secrets. It could very well be a mid-range Paladin. In which case, I would say traditionally the mid Paladin has been favored in this matchup.
Right? Yeah, I think so. Although this is the more fatigue-oriented warrior, it looks like it's got the Elise. We see a Revenge and a Justicar.
Right.
So if it is, I think that has a better chance than most warrior lists do, besides Patron. I
I
think
agree.
Patron would probably be the best warrior list for this matchup, but this deck I think is better than like traditional control warrior against a mid-range paladin.
Right. I think in the past, how Paladin usually wins against the traditional control warrior is your hero power eventually outpowers their two armor. They run out of removal and things like that, so usually you win in the late game. But with this kind of warrior, it's got a lot more armor than the old warrior did, and a lot more removal too.
Yeah, and Elise, you can just pull the trigger on, all right, it's time to win the game. Once you do
Right.
get your golden monkey, let's start getting some legendaries up here.
Right.
But Paladin, even mid-range Paladin, I would say has great threats, great cost-efficient minions they can play, which can give Warrior a lot of trouble. And the usual hero power problem does come up, especially if there is a Justicar True Heart in the Paladin deck. We're just gonna see an early revenge, which I like. You definitely can't fault him for this.
Right.
Quartermaster is still something that's out there, even though you don't see it much. But Revenge is just gonna trade 1 for 1 in a way for that muster for battle.
Right. Definitely a preemptive clear there in case of Quartermaster, especially would be super scary, especially knowing that Altier still has the coin in his hand. But we actually do see an Avenge drawn from Altier here, so this is actually going to be Secret Paladin. It was just funny that we didn't see in his opening hand or his mulligan, there was no secrets.
Yeah, I think Secret Paladin actually does make the most sense based on what we've
Right.
seen, but mid-range Paladin was possible. But yeah, I think this does sure it up that there's probably a Mysterious Challenger in here, and there's probably
Right.
more secrets where this came from.
Right. So Altier has actually got quite a few options here. He could choose to maybe throw out the second muster and put up the Avenge to ensure that we're going to get some Avenge value unless we get board cleared again. We could just drop the Shredder, or we could get the Haunted Creeper started. Alright, so looks like it's just going to be the Shredder.
Yeah.
So if he holds onto that coin and doesn't get the Mysterious Challenger, could also be coining Boom on 6, which seems really good.
Yeah, I like saving the coin for sure. He's already got the boom in hand, and if he does draw the Mysterious Challenger, he could play that instead.
Right. So Force Dog is gonna have to just take out the first half of the Shredder here, see what comes out. All right, and so he's like, okay, I'm just gonna throw down my own Elise, put the map into his deck.
Yeah, going on a quest to find the golden monkey.
And that's not Challenger. So is it time to start getting our secrets rolling? Or are we going to Kings? I don't know. So this 3/5 isn't particularly threatening, but if we wanna get value out of our 2/3, we could consider Kingsing here.
Hmm. Yeah, if you blessed into kings, would you take out the Elite Star Seeker?
Let's see. So Kings would put our 2/3 up to 6/7. Um I don't know, I think it's I I want to say I can't say I play this deck too much. I want to say that I don't want to trade here.
Hmm.
I feel like if I'm gonna be kingsing into a 6/7, I want to be going face. Like this 3/5 is not really a threat to me, right?
Yeah, and another nice thing about the Blessing of Kings is it could possibly get whatever removal Force Dog has out of the way before the Doctor Boom comes out. Now,
Right,
granted, Warrior's filled with removal.
right.
It's probably not true. Like, he'll probably still have some removal left, but opts to
Okay,
play the Kings and trade, which, can't really fault him for that.
right. I do like setting this up with a get down though, so that if Force Dog happens to have another weapon, he can't even swing into this. Okay, so we're just gonna see the Justicar come down on curve here, and I'm gonna say we're most likely gonna be seeing a coin boom here.
Yeah. Maybe Altair is afraid of the brawl,
Right,
but I think you're like the aggressive deck in this matchup. You need to be the one asking the questions like, do you
exactly.
have brawl? Like you play your Dr. Boom and you're saying, do you have brawl? And
Like Brawl is
Force Dog
always
says
gonna
yes or
be a
no.
problem, right?
Yeah.
Like for Paladin, where you're gonna be storming the board like this, Brawl's gonna come sooner or later, right? So I would say, take the chance now while he doesn't have that many cards in hand.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm in this situation, a lot of the time, the way I see it is the earlier you play your Dr. Boom, which is weak to Brawl, weak to Big Game Hunter, weak to removal in general,
Right,
the earlier the better, because maybe they haven't drawn any of those things yet. So,
right. So if you play Doctor Boom here, are you gonna trade into 6/3? I want to say we're going face.
yeah, I would definitely go face. I think no questions asked.
Okay, so we're actually gonna see the Creeper followed up with some secret buildup here instead. So I'm curious if he's gonna throw out the muster here, try to maybe bait out a brawl before he throws down his boom.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to go with this line instead. You have to be mana efficient. So if you're not going to play the Dr. Boom, this is, I would say, definitely the line of play you would take.
Right.
Uh, I mean,
We've
he could
got
have made just 1/1/1, but making the three, refilling your weapon up to 1/4, it just looks way better.
right. So this board is actually gonna be kind of awkward for Force Dog, and seeing that Avenge land on the creeper is not what you want to see. Especially, it looked like Force Dog wanted to bash off one of the 4/3s if it happened to land on a 1/1, but now that option's out for him.
Yep, you can still tank up here. Uh,
So it's like he's gonna go for the bash followed up by the cruel task, which seems fine as well. Can also get a tank up in there afterwards.
yep, tank up a good amount, as the bash also gave him 3 armor, so.
Right.
He can still stall this game out for at least a little while, even with the Dr. Boom coming up soon. He's got the BGH to deal with that.
Right. On Altier's side, it's starting to look a little shady though. He's starting to run out of steam, and Dr. Boom is his only threat left in his hand right now. Like if Force Dog happens to pick up a brawl here, he's gonna be in a really bad spot.
Yep. Unfortunately, I don't think Noble Sacrifice works when you already have 7 minions on the board. I think it
Right.
used to, but
Right.
yeah, I'm
That is
pretty
something
sure
you
they
have to be
changed that.
really careful of. So Altier's gonna choose to trade there. And this boom is gonna be seen by our friend BGH.
Yeah. Maybe he's got Ragnaros in here. We did see a Tyrion.
Right.
Um, so those two things are definitely what he's looking for. Or that Mysterious Challenger,
Yep,
also
and
a
that
great pickup.
Mysterious Challenge draw is probably exactly what Altier wanted to see here. And so we're going to get 4 secrets pulled out. So the only one missing is, again, the Noble Sack that is in his hand. So it's interesting. So Altier is actually playing the 5 secret version. And
Yeah.
he was lucky not to draw into too many of them early on.
Yep. We see a repentance, which one of the less popular ones, but still here nonetheless, as well as the redemption. Lots of secrets in the deck, so picking up that mysterious challenger before drawing all of them, definitely working out here.
Right. And again, that the repentance is now less commonly run. And Four Star only sees four secrets, so he's like, okay, maybe he's just expecting like the normal suite of four secrets, and if he throws down this Belcher, then he's gonna be disappointed.
Yeah, well now he's gonna know with
Right.
the Noah sacrifice. He's gonna know that all right, this is all the secrets besides sacred trial and eye for an eye.
Right. And
So
we've got that full pyramid going on the
yeah,
paladin side. What if
just
it what if
straight.
it was eye for an eye though?
I mean, that would definitely throw him for a loop, but at this
Right.
point in this tournament, I would probably rule out eye for an eye and
Right.
sacred trial.
And suddenly, Paladin's board is looking really scary here. Where like Paladin was running out of steam, all of a sudden that mysterious challenger drop changes everything, and this top deck execute off the slam is gonna be amazing for Force Dog here.
Yeah, it's helpful, but I don't know if it's actually gonna be enough.
Right. I think he still needs to find a brawl in his next draw to have a chance here, but this is gonna help him stall another turn.
Yeah,
Without that top deck execute though, I think he was actually done for.
this is the right decision for sure, though. Attacking first, getting the noble sacrifice to proc the redemption.
Right. We hope that it lands on the 6-4 because we're going to execute it anyway.
Oh
And
yeah, that would be
unfortunately,
perfect.
it does not.
Yep, too good to be true there, I think.
Right.
Force Dog still got a decent amount of HP, but Altair putting out a lot of damage on this board. He's got a Keeper of Ultiman if he wants to upgrade one of his guys as well. I don't think it's quite gonna be lethal. Oh wait, Competitive Spirit. I forgot about that. Is this lethal damage now? Yep, I think it is. Both players saying well played plus a cog hammer.
Alright.
So that's definitely lethal damage at this point. And yeah, maybe Altair or Dino Sam is going to start the comeback now for St. John's as a Force Dog does not manage to beat him with his warrior. So that's gonna be Paladin. And the series is now going to be 2-1. British
Alright.
Columbia in the lead.
Alright. We're going to be seeing St. John's starting their comeback here. And St. John's going to bring this series up to 2-1.
Not bad. And that's going to be the Warrior out of the way now for British Columbia, as well as the Paladin out of the way for St. John's. So, once again, just to discuss the format, it is best of five. Once a class has been played, it can no longer be played by the school that played it. So Rogue, Warlock, and Warrior have been played by British Columbia, so they still have the other six classes remaining. For St. John's, they've already played their Druid, their Warlock, and their Paladin, so they still have their other six classes. So Warlock is down for both teams, and yep, Druid is still up for British Columbia as well as Paladin. Whereas St. John still has access to things like Mage, maybe Shaman. Shaman's up for both schools. So should definitely be interesting to see. Maybe St. John's is going to bring out their own warrior. Patron is still really good, as well as the Elise deck that we just saw. That deck is still good, but Secret Paladin probably not what it wanted to see. Especially with an opening like that. That Secret Paladin opening, no Doomsayer was available. So no early answer to deal with that stuff. Just waiting for this next match to get started here. We're going to have John Adrian Lee from University of British Columbia versus Winston Jacom from St. John's. Players just deciding what decks they want to play, possibly doing a little bit of tech before they jump into this next game, as they can modify their decks before the series moves on.
All right. So it looks like we're just waiting for our players to add each other. We're going to be having, right, John Adrian Lee from UBC and Winston J. Com from St. John's University. So what decks do we have left? So from UBC side, Rogue is down, Warrior is down, Warlock is down.
Yep, and Druid, Warlock, and Paladin have been played from St. John's. So taking these things into consideration, Freeze Mage looks like it could be a great choice from University of British Columbia. Or excuse me, I was thinking they already played the Warrior on the side of St. John's. So maybe Freeze Mage might not be a good choice if Warrior pops up. Usually when you want to play the Freeze Mage, you wait until you see the Druid and the Warrior from one school before you play that because those are just like the worst matchup for it by far. Worst matchups. You could play Druid on the side of University of British Columbia now that Paladin and
Right.
Warlock are out of the way. Those are two matchups that you usually worry about, that being like Secret Paladin and Zoo. Um, both two big problems for Druid.
Right. And yeah, so from UBC side, I would say I'm most likely expecting either Shaman or Druid. From St. John's side, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Warlock come out, or maybe even their own warrior to follow up.
Hmm. Well, we already did see the Warlock from both schools.
Right. There was a zoo earlier from St. John's, right?
Yeah, yeah, they played the Warlocks against each other.
Right.
Which, Warlock, I would say, is probably the most popular thing we've seen played, just because it's so, um,
So
it's so
versatile, I
versatile.
would say.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
so
so many
flexible.
strong Warlock archetypes. All
Yep.
right. So it looks like our players are ready.
All right, it's time for game four. Can British Columbia close it out as they're up 2-1, or will St. John's
All
keep the
right.
comeback going?
All right. And as we expected, we are going to be seeing Druid and Warrior. So it looks like a Patron Warrior from St. John's side, and looks like a standard Druid, but we see a Harrison from UBC side. So I think that's
Yeah.
definitely going to be a keep in this hand against Warrior.
Yeah, maybe they were expecting the Warrior or the Rogue. I
Right.
mean, Paladin has already been used, but there's still a couple other classes. Even Shaman. Two Doomhammers are played in the Burn Shaman deck list, so Harrison Jones can still get a lot done there.
Right.
So it seemed like a good choice for this game.
Right. So Warrior hand is looking nice so far. We've got that Despite, got that Rage. All we need is our patron. Um, but unfortunately, that Harrison is going to be ruining some dreams today, I think.
Yeah, Harrison usually does put a kink in the plans of the Patron Warrior deck by taking out that Death Spite on the perfect turn.
Right.
Such a strong card, Harrison Jones is. Hmm.
So, right. Harrison is another one of those really swingy tech cards, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to be seeing likely just the roots come out here from the Druid side. He doesn't have anything to do for a few turns, but I think he's okay with sitting. If he picks up a growth, he'll be really happy. Acolyte, not a bad draw at all from Winston J's side.
Yeah, I think Winston Jacom is perfectly happy to see these two Treants come out. He's got the Ghoul to put into play. It looks like it will just get taken out by John,
Right. And
and
John Adrian
Acolyte's
Lee
going to be
not
useful.
not too unhappy about this because he didn't have a growth to do on his turn anyway. So he's like, okay, we'll just hero power down this acolyte or this ghoul rather.
Yep. This Acolyte looks like a really easy follow-up here. Potentially, he could slam his own Acolyte next turn if he doesn't want to use the Death Spite,
Right.
just for some cycling.
So question is King Kimchi gonna coin out his Shredder here? So he's got to be thinking, okay, so if I coin Shredder here, then I can't coin Harrison, right?
Yeah. I mean, I probably wouldn't coin the Shredder. I would be looking more at playing something like Big Game Hunter or just hero powering because you've got that
Right.
Ancient of Lore later,
Right.
which you want to be able to coin out. You just really want to use the coin so you can have a few good turns weave together. Um, Interesting choice here. John chooses not to attack. He doesn't want to enable Battle Rage for his opponent, which, I mean, it's interesting. I like I still think that one damage is probably going to be worth it, even if you do enable an extra draw from Battle Rage. Because how long can you really keep your opponent at 30? You know, like as a Druid deck, you want to start attacking them sooner rather than later. So
Right.
he's just limiting his options for this one turn, I guess, which is interesting. Winston Jacom picks up a Korkron. I wouldn't be surprised to see that get played now. Might as well start attacking.
Right. That Korkon is gonna be pretty annoying for King of Kimchi to deal with here. So he picks up his second Force of Nature, which is not what he wants to see. So he's like, okay, let's just play the Shredder out here. Hope that he doesn't have another way to deal with it. Um, okay. So I'm gonna say that we're probably just gonna see the Despite come out here from Winston J's side. Just gonna take out the first half of the Shredder, and hopefully whatever comes out of it has less than 3 attack. And that Lore Rocker show is pretty perfect.
That is, I mean,
I mean, I
that's
can't say
great.
we're too happy. Not I don't say we're not happy to see that. We can take it out for free.
It isn't the
Keep our
worst.
Corcoran alive. Okay, so it looks like he's just gonna go face with the Corcoran.
Yeah. I would actually say that, well, I mean, with the way Winston's treating this, um, it's pretty bad for King of Kimchi. Like I was
Right,
thinking something with one attack would be worse, like something with one attack and a decent amount of health, because Acolyte can trade into it, get free draws. All
right.
right, Winston Jacom does decide to kill it off now, which is kind of expected.
Right.
Battle
So Winston
Rage
J.
joint.
Calm was able to get that really good battle region, and so his Despite did get destroyed, but it was actually not too big a deal. He can take this Harrison out with the War Axe now, and he was actually able to get an extra draw off the Acolyte as well because of the Death Rattle of the Despite. So now his board is looking really strong. Still got his 4-2 going with not really having an answer from King of Kimchi. So now King of Kimchi's got to be saying, all right, so are we going to try to remove this board or are we just going to develop our own minions? And he's actually drawn all his combo pieces, which is kind of funny. He's actually drawn the Innervate too, so he could potentially Innervate out the combo if he wants to just clear this board.
Yeah. That's
I want to
something
say
I
it doesn't look too great to me right now, though. He's
yeah.
also eyeing the Keeper. He's like, maybe we can just use the Keeper to help us pick some of this apart.
Yeah, would not feel too good about innervating my combo to clear the board. Sometimes you gotta do it though.
Right. If he just uses Force, he can clear off. He can clear off the two bigger threats and just leave the Acolyte alone if he wants. Oh, it looks like he's actually gonna be going for the full combo clear. Okay,
Right.
so we pick off everything. We put four damage into the face. Not too bad, and we've got our Ancient of Lore to follow up.
Alrighty, board gets cleaned up. 4 damage to the face. And he still got the other combo. I mean, it doesn't usually happen where you have both combos just ready to go in your hand, as well as an innervate. But it did seem necessary to clear off the opponent's board at that point. And Winston, considering this Dr. Boom, does seem like the right play. King of Kimchi does have his big game hunter to kill it off.
Right. So looks like King of Kimchi's gonna be looking to get rid of one of these boom bots first before playing down his BGH. And he's like, okay, now we've got the board back. I'm in a decent spot. Winston J still hasn't found his patrons yet, actually, but he's got the Despite to clear off this board relatively evenly if he wants to get started with that. He can also play out his own Frothing Berserker if he wants to get that started, but if he does that, he's probably going to have to end up slamming the 4-2 as well.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, you've got a couple options here. I think if you want to play your Frothing, though, we're probably going to remove both of these minions, right?
Yeah. I think Frothing cleared the board does look really good. He could use the boom bot to potentially clear it in an easier way. And, you know, if this Frothing Berserker lives a turn, Winston can definitely just kill off his opponent. Like two inner rages, whirlwind, slam, death spike. Like he's got so much burst damage. Oh, he's
Right.
actually gonna use an inner rage here. A little bit surprised by this, but it's not too big of a deal. He could have just
Okay.
traded the Boombot first and seen what happened, and then
Right.
I mean, I guess if he ends up having to kill off the BGH, he could die to the second innervate and combo or something.
Right. So now, Cam Kimchi's gonna be looking at this like, okay, that's a big frothing, and you really don't want to use your other copy of Force, your last copy of Force, to take this out. But I don't know. Like, if he face takes this damage, he's got to be thinking, okay, now I'm gonna die to Grom, right? So he's got to be thinking, all right, I can't really face take this damage here. So is Force our only way of dealing with this?
Man, I mean, it seems like it is. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess he already knew the BGH was used, so putting the frothing to 7 attack wasn't that big of a mistake. Um,
right. So he actually didn't play his Wrath here, so I'm guessing he's actually going to be leaving this Armor Smith alone. I think I might have liked to see this Armor Smith picked off as well.
yeah, I agree. I think it's only gonna make things worse from here on out,
Right.
and it's plus it's gonna be dealing 1 damage a turn. Um, on the bright side, Winston doesn't really have much to do. He's probably gonna slam his own Armor Smith, but if the Armor Smith was killed off, he wouldn't even have this option. Let's see what this
Right.
chains into.
So Winston is going to go for this self slam and picks off that patron finally.
Wow. If the Armor Smith was killed, this wouldn't have been possible.
Right. And so this is actually going to be a pretty big punish here because with this combo on the patron, there's going to be a ton of armor gain.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well Inner Rage Whirlwind, I think, as
Right.
well. Like Winston looking at keeping the Inner Rage, but yeah, I like using it. You have a Whirlwind in case you draw the Grom or something, and you definitely want to have two patrons with 3 health. You've already seen both Force of Natures. How in the world is a Druid gonna deal with two 3 health Grim patrons, besides having to have like two Wraths maybe? A Wrath and a Swipe doesn't do it because one of the Grim patrons has 2 health. He could be looking at using his other Whirlwind here, but yeah, it seems like a bit of overkill to me. He could have done it, I guess. He would have had 3 patrons with 3 health, right? Or
Right. Even so, this is like, it's looking pretty bad for King of Kimchi here. Like, how does he remove his board? So it looks like he's going to be going for the Ancient Lore. Not really a lot of other options here. If we're going to be Wrathing for one, yeah, we're going to Wrath first, right? So we can Wrath for one, see what we get. Keeper of the Grove, uh, Keeper of the Grove still not quite enough to do it here. So he's actually just going to go for the Ancient Lore heal. Okay, so he was facing down 10 damage on the board. He's like, okay, I'm dead to a weapon, right? So if he didn't heal here, he actually would have been dead.
yeah. Hmm.
It's like, you don't feel great about doing that, but when you're 4 damage off lethal against a warrior, you gotta be pretty wary, right?
Right.
So I don't know if it's a winning play, but it does buy you BC another turn for now.
Right. Hmm. I mean, it just I'm just trying to think of a way that King of Kimchi can come back here, as these patrons are most likely not going anywhere from Winston. Two of them at 3 health, one of them at 2 health. Might as well whirlwind to make some more, I guess. Although I wish he would have left the armor smith in play because he missed out on getting some armor, but that's probably not going to matter. Winston just going to go ahead and use his Death Spite to hit face, which I like. You know, you've got so much damage already, you don't need to deal any more damage to yourself, although you've already seen both Force of Natures get used. Acidic Salt
Oh
Ooze, man.
man!
We already saw the
Wow!
Harrison, but this is just a lot of tech against weapons, which makes
Yeah,
sense.
this druid has a lot of weapon hate in it. Unfortunately, that's a little too late for King of Kimchi, and St. John's University is going to be tying up the series 2-2, and we're going to be going into game 5.
Oh man. I mean, we were talking about it earlier.
Right.
British Columbia was up 2 games, and now the series is tied up 2-2. we have a match here. I mean, this is crazy.
Right, coming down to game five. This match going down to the wire.
Yeah, and that's gonna be Druid used up now for both teams, as well as Warrior used up for both teams. So, is this going to be a Freeze Mage mirror in game five? Please no.
That would be something.
Please, please, mercy. I mean, it makes sense as a deck choice when Druid and Warlock are both gone from both sides, but you do not want to play the Freeze Mage Mirror in Game 5 of your series when semifinals is on the line, I think, because that's just not a good proposition. Like, Freeze Mage Mirror is very skill intensive, but sometimes it can just come down to like a coin flip
Right.
on a few key things that happen throughout the matchup.
Right. So I think we are very likely to see either Mage and Shaman has actually not been picked by either team yet. So I think either Mage or Shaman is going to be in our next match.
I'd really like to see a gentleman's agreement in this fifth game. Let's both just play Burn Shaman and see what happens. Like,
Wow. Battle of Smork. Actually though, stuff like Shaman, like Smork Shaman mirrors, you got to be very careful because you can't just YOLO face a lot of times. A lot of times we got to be very careful about how much damage the other person can do, right?
yeah. Yeah, it's still very like still a lot of decisions to be made, especially in the early game. Sometimes you have choices on like which two drop to play, whether you want to play removal or something like that. There's a lot more to it than a lot of people get it credit for, um, especially like the mirror.
Right.
But yeah, we're gonna have Case versus Rajkovsky in this fifth and final game of this series. Who is going to have their chance at moving on to DreamHack Austin for the finals? It'll be interesting to see as these teams are both looking to get to the semifinals, which will be happening on Friday at
Right.
7 p.m. Pacific. Um,
Right. So this game to decide who's going to the round of four. Having Case from UBC versus Rachofsky from St. John's. A lot riding on this game here. It's got to be a high pressure game here. Game five of such an important game.
yep. Yeah, still five decks to choose from, or five classes, I should say, from each school. And yeah, it's just like at this point, these guys are just deciding what decks they want to play, what they might want to tech in. They've both got to be thinking, what if the other plays Freeze Mage? Because Druid and Warrior, like I said, they're gone. Um, Maybe we could just see one school anticipating the Freeze Mage, putting a lot of secret hate in their deck. Or maybe we see both schools do that, and then they both just play these clunky decks that have a lot of secret hate when neither of them have secrets or something.
Right.
Some interesting
It
things can
was
happen.
really surprising from Druid to see double weapon hating.
Right. And I mean, it's showing that he was probably expecting something like Patron, but it still wasn't enough as Patron, once it gets going, killing off weapons doesn't deal with, the Grim Patrons themselves. So
Right.
not quite enough to win that one. Although I can understand it, it does hedge a little bit to help win the matchup. All right, looks like the players are in the challenge screen, making their final arrangements before this fifth game gets started. Exciting stuff here.
All right. Yep. Looks like our players are just choosing their decks.
Once again, after this series, we're going to see the DigiPen Institute of Technology, DigiPen Dragons versus University of California, Berkeley, the Goldford Grizzlies. They will also be playing for a spot in semifinals, but let's focus on the match at hand as the players are now in game.
All right. So it is going to be Freeze Mage as we expected, at least from one side. From UBC, we're going to see Case bringing out the Freeze Mage, and Rachowski's going to be on Hunter.
All right, I like it. We're not seeing Freeze Mage versus Freeze Mage. I would not be surprised to see a Flare in Rejkovsky's deck or a Cousin
Right,
Mystic or something.
right.
Um,
So that would just be devastating for the freeze mage here. So, all right. So, freeze mage got a little bit of an awkward start. Loot order is fine. We would have really liked to see a scientist come out here. Rachowska on the other hand, does have his scientist ready to go. He's gonna coin it out first.
yep, Iron Beak Owl waiting in the wings as well. Exactly what you want against something like a Doomsayer.
Right. Still can't really tell what kind of hunter it is from Rachowski's side yet, but really strong start. We've got our double twos into our animal companion, exactly what we want to be seeing when we're on coin. And let's see. So Casey's got a couple options here. So first, that trade is going to be happening almost surely. Question is, are we just going to go for draw, or are we going to tempo Doomsayer?
It's interesting. If he was going to play Face Hunter, I would actually expect him to not play Mad Scientist or Explosive Trap because, if he's thinking he's going to run into Freeze Mage is never going to attack any of your traps. Like, it
Right,
just doesn't happen.
right,
So I would think those would have gotten cut if he was really expecting this. But
right,
maybe he was thinking maybe his opponent plays something aggressive to possibly beat Freeze Mage.
right,
So there's a few different lines of thought there. It's not like he can know for sure that it's going to be Freeze.
right.
Um,
Unfortunately, Misha here is not what Wachowski's going to want to be seeing because it's going to get picked off by this Frostbolt. Um, and even Leok would have given an extra damage on the board, but unfortunately that Misha's going to go down and Thanos is going to come out. And it's Huffer the second time, so we can't be too upset about that.
all right, card isn't bugged. For a second there, I was thinking we might need to call up Blizzard, but we're good.
Speaking of animal companions, did you see that new animal companion card that came out today?
Yeah, isn't it 8 mana, summon all animal companions?
All right, now we can have all the companions. Now we know that we always get Huffer.
Yeah, you do always get, like, it's confirmed. Like,
Actually, always Huffer. So now this board is starting to look pretty scary from Case's side. So what is Case gonna do about this? So he's like, okay, I'm gonna Doomsayer here. We can just Scientist and Pray, and all right. So we're gonna Isolate this Huffer here. Not Frostbolt for now, just Isolate it and hope that this Doomsayer goes off. Unfortunately, this Owl is ready from Rachowski's side. Wow, even got the Juggler follow up here. But I'm not sure that I would commit the Juggler from Wachowski's side just because Blizzard is a thing now. But I definitely think we're going to be seeing this Owl come down here.
I might actually just go all in with the Owl and the Juggler just to apply as much pressure as possible.
Right,
A lot of Freeze Mage lists only play one Blizzard.
right,
Sure, a lot of them play two, but there is a reasonable chance your opponent doesn't have one. And I
right,
think you just want to be asking the questions once again, like we talked about earlier. You just want to be applying as much pressure as possible, even if there's a decent amount of risk. Wow,
right.
he's just gonna go
Whoa,
for
we're gonna be
maximum
going all
face
face here.
damage.
Okay, so Rachowski's looking at his hand. He's like, "All right, I've got a lot of damage in hand. I can start being aggressive here."
I like this.
Yeah, I mean, he's still got two 1/1s on the board afterwards. He's just gotta hope though that I don't know if he's banking on just being able to hero power Case of Death here, then he's probably not gonna be attacking in with these spiders.
All
Okay,
right.
but now that we've got hounds, so it's like, are we gonna hit here? If we hit, we have a chance of giving him an additional 8 health. But looking at our hand right now, it might be worth it.
Yeah, this is always one of those difficult choices because it really is just like a 50-50 at this point on what that secret is. Yeah, but if he doesn't,
Wachowski going with a
if
really aggressive line there. He's like, okay, like screw Huffer. I'm just gonna silence it and go face.
I mean, Case does have a heal bot, so if he doesn't attack, it's gonna be even worse, I think,
Right,
because he'll have missed out on 2 damage. Like he's gonna have to attack at some point
right,
in this game. Like he's gonna feel bad because yeah, it's an ice bear, but it's still in the end the right choice because Case does have healing. He's not gonna be able to
right,
win this game through burn alone, so I think this is the right play.
right. It looks like he's just gonna throw down the juggler here, followed up by the hero power.
Blizzard a bit late.
Right. But
Still
with
good.
that heal bot play, I think Kais is going to be in a really good position for stabilizing his board here.
Yep. I think Blizzard is still pretty good here. If he wants to just play that and next turn he can heal bot and fireball or something. Um, Man, this has really come down to the wire as this is game three or game five, excuse me, 2-2. We're all tied up. Whoever wins this game is going on to the semifinals on Friday to have their chance to make it to the finals to play at DreamHack Austin,
Right.
which would be so sweet. Be so awesome. But players here just got to be focusing on the game at hand. Lots of variables to consider. Lots of different things that could happen in this game. They want to make sure they do everything right. We're going to see the attack from Case. He thinks he has enough healing to make this explosive trap completely irrelevant. He's got a good amount of damage. In fact, one more attack from Theresen plus a hero power plus all of the burn in his hand is going to be lethal damage on a two-turn clock, I guess. So he has enough time to play the heal bot,
Right.
put enough lethal or put enough damage on his opponent's face to kill him off with Pyroblast on the next turn. So Rajkovsky's got this turn, and if he, yeah, he's just pretty much got like this turn and the next one,
Right.
close out the game with his burn.
Ro8A can actually do a decent amount of damage this turn. With the Hounds in combination with the Abusive, that's going to be 3. Followed up with his Quick Shot and Hero Power is going to be another 5. So he doesn't know that there's a heal bot in hand for her case, and I think that's going to make him pretty sad, but
Yeah, he's
he's going to
about
do what he
to.
can right now. Yeah,
The truth is going to be revealed.
right. And this heal bot is going to be backbreaking for Rachowski here. He's like, oh man, we're so close. Would have had him on 2-turn clock, right? Now this heal bot is going to reduce all the progress that he just made, and Case is going to be able to set up lethal.
Yeah, it looks like Case considering a trade.
Right. So he's maybe thinking, all right, what's the maximum damage that Wachowski can do for me? So what's the maximum actually? So it could be another kill command, another quick shot, hero power. So it's going to be like a 10
Quick
damage
shot.
maximum. So I think he's got to see that and be like, all right, I think that's 10 damage maximum, and I'm going to be safe no matter what I do.
Yeah, like two quick shots and a kill command or something.
2 quick shots and a kill command would be exactly what it takes, I believe.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Case is gonna sure up the win with this hero power killing off the beast
Right.
as well as a freeze. Like, man, Rajkovsky, like they probably knew there was a
Wow,
good chance of
he
freeze.
actually got quick shot into kill command.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what like the quick shot draws into after he plays the kill command.
Right. So just quick shot kill command would have been one off. I think it had to be quick shot kill command.
If he still had the beast.
Right. But now he doesn't, so he's gonna be short. So actually, I mean, there's actually no way out here, right? Because the power blast has been reduced so many times that Case has got lethal from hand. So even if he clears his whole board here,
Yeah, Rajkovsky just hoping that there's no lethal with the board being dead,
right,
maximizing his damage with that hero power, but Case, he's got the Pyroblast for 7 mana, he's got the hero power, that's exactly enough mana and exactly enough damage to finish off Rajkovsky for the 3-2 win. Yeah, he does see it for the 3-2 win over St. John's. Congratulations to University of British Columbia.
right,
UBC Esports moving on to the semifinals on Friday.
right. And that was actually it was a really exciting game there. It was looking really good. I think it must have been like feeling really good for the hunter until he saw that heal bot come down, and that was like it was really clutch from UBC side. But yeah, I definitely think that that game came down to that healing at the end. And even with that healing, the hunter was almost able to pull it back. If he had one more turn, maybe.
Yeah, wow. I mean, overall, I would say that this was just like a great series.
Right, really well
Um,
played from both sides.
yeah, I was actually expecting the 3-0 for a little while there, but then in that third game, we saw things turn around a little bit. and we saw St. John's start to work their way back up a little bit, but British Columbia just says nope. We were meant to win this. They wanted to get it in the 3-0 fashion, but made it a little more exciting by going to 5 games once again.
Right.
Congratulations to UBC and It's Bolt, their coordinator. Great job by them. And yeah, will be exciting to see what they play in the semifinals and if they make it to the finals for DreamHack Austin.
Right. So that wraps up our first match of the night. Congratulations, UBC, for moving on to the round of four, and a really good run by St. John's as well for making it this far in the season.
Yep, we'll be back in just a little bit for our second match, I believe, which is going to be
Right.
DigiPen Institute of Technology versus University of California, Berkeley.
Right. And we'll be right back after a short intermission with DigiPen and UC Berkeley.